this may just be the video that finally gets me 1,000,000 views. Well, you know what that means. We're gonna be doing it again.
Bloody no! Here we go again.
Before we begin, here are some classic Fallout pole dancers for your viewing pleasure and to put you in the right mood, but mainly for the audience retention. And let's go on a hunt for all of New Vegas' classic mods. The classic's landscape felt desolate. FNV's Wasteland comes close, but with the following mods we'll bring it even closer. As a base, let's use NMC's Texture Pack and NMC's Washed Out Wasteland. We'll be using the smaller file size for both mods. This won't make a big difference as it almost looks exactly like vanilla textures. The main reason why I'm using them is to up the quality and consistency of the Mojave Wasteland's textures. Look at the rocks from Fallout 1. Now compare them to those of Fallout New Vegas. The original's art style was way ahead of its time. Let's make the rocks of the Mojave look similar with textures over time's rock retexture. Radioactive goo in the old school games would glow in bright green, and that made it actually look hazardous. Using irradiant muck and radioactive muck, we can achieve a similar aesthetic for pockets of radiation in the Mojave. In the original games, roads are much darker and look a bit more preserved. To replicate this in Fallout New Vegas, we'll use classic Fallout roads retexture. This one is sure to make you feel nostalgic, especially in areas like Freeside. In case you feel like these textures don't blend in with the New Vegas aesthetic, I've made a modified version of the same textures, fading the color and paint a little bit. The wrecked vehicles of the older games were much more rusty and not very colorful. More rusty cars in the Mojave will make the FNV cars resemble a similar condition. The first location you stumble upon when leaving Vault 13 in Fallout 1 is Shady Sands.
Greetings. Your business in Shady Sands might be...
And the architecture in that location is iconic. So let's install classic Adobe buildings in Mojave and classic Adobe 188 Trading Post. This is gonna transform some of the buildings in the game into Adobe design, especially for the NCR, as well as the 188 Gunrunners Outpost and Slop and Shop. The change obviously isn't just on the outside, but also within the interiors. Classic buildings will place a new torrent structure next to the Gunrunners HQ. This is a replica of the building we see in Fallout 1's intro. That's all this mod does, and I'd love to see this mod expanded upon in the future. This combo will create a similar vibe to that of the first couple Fallouts, where some aspects are in contrast to each other. The rusted vehicles but more maintained roads, the pale dry desert, and bright green pools of toxic waste. May not be perfect, but this is what's possible with mods for now. The classic landscape needs classic wildlife, so I'll go over several mods that'll restylize the Mojave's creatures to fit the classic Fallout's vision. Classic-esque rat scorpion color palette changes the rat scorpions from blue to brown, just like how they were in the oldies. For some reason, this makes them look more edible or tasty.
Money, money, money.
Next, classic gecko CVD textures will make the geckos of the Mojave resemble the retro counterparts, and classic Brahmin CVD textures makes FNV's Brahmin resemble the ones in the classics. Now, retro Deathclaws were darker and had stripes on their backs. They also seem to have broader shoulders. Classic-esque Deathclaw retexture and horrors of the New West are gonna bring New Vegas' petrifying wasteland predators as close to that as possible. In Fallout 1, super mutants dominated the wasteland. They were a force to be reckoned with.
Not no, you stupid.
Let's bring back the Master's army to its former glory by using classic-esque super mutant retexture, classic Centaur replacer, classic floaters for New Vegas, and Menace of the New West. This mod overhauls the mutants' facial structure and animations. Their heads will look more like they did in the classic Fallouts, and named muties will have faces unique to them. Remember how the Master's army would use heavy guns one-handed? The mod reanimates New Vegas' mutants to do the same. How cool is that? Within the Mariposa military base, we also see the old-school Mr. Handys and Robo-Brains. Let's bring them back with classic Robo-Brain and Mr. Handy and Mr. Gutsy replacers.
Avoid my ghouls if you like your skin on.
The ghouls of Necropolis had a green color to them. Classic-esque feral ghoul retexture will emulate a similar appearance for the ferals of New Vegas. The Wanamingos are some of the toughest enemies you'll face in the franchise. This alien creature is included with the roster of Monster Mod Lite. Luckily, we can disable all the other creatures from spawning by altering the configuration file. Let's also grab spore plants in the wasteland so that we'll get to see them outside of Vault 21, because those things were common in Fallout 2. Lastly, Mojave Wildlife adds hundreds of balanced vanilla-friendly spawn points throughout the Mojave Desert. Around areas like Good Springs, you might encounter a bloatfly, but in more mountainous areas, you're bound to come across more threatening hostiles. This will make traveling on foot more amusing. With these creature mods, we'll have made the Nevada wastes a more savage place. The Mojave is gonna start to feel like the Southern California wasteland.
I'm a good cook. Maybe I'll make you dinner sometime.
In this section, we're gonna make the Mojave Desert a more responsive world map. In the classics, your choices had consequences, and the wasteland would change with every decision you made. Take for instance, in Fallout 1, if you take your sweet-ass time bringing that Vault 13 water chip, its inhabitants will perish. And in 2, eliminating children will make you a target of bounty hunters. Fallout 2 would also allow you to play past the game's ending to see the results of your choices. To bring those features back to New Vegas, we're gonna need some mods, starting with the Living Desert. This mod will add all kinds of patrols throughout the map, and it makes the game react to your choices. Mess with the wrong folk? They'll send assassins after you. Made Paladin hard in the new Elder, the Brotherhood will finally be able to step out of the shadows. Those and many more consequences have been added. This is perhaps New Vegas' most important mod, because every great RPG needs a dynamic world space that changes the more you play. Every choice you make will now feel like it has more weight. The classic Fallouts understood that, and this is why the Living Desert is crucial to this list. Similarly, functional post-game ending will allow you to continue playing after the Battle of Hoover Dam, and whatever ending you get will be reflected in the Wasteland. If you get the Brotherhood of Steel to ally with the NCR,
The Brotherhood and the NCR in the Mojave Wasteland declared an official truce.
you'll see them patrolling the roads alongside each other. The Repcon rocket ships used radioactive fuel, and if you decide to have them crash into each other,
Radioactive fuel from the wrecked ships seeped out and contaminated the area.
you'll be able to see the salvaged rockets seeping radioactive waste in Novak. A list of all the post-ending content from FPGE can be found in the description. FPGE also features bonus content when combined with the Living Desert, so both were meant to be used together for a complete experience. Alright, so now, what about consequences other than those of your own decisions? The NPCs in New Vegas are far from innocent, and the outcomes of their actions should be reflected in the Wasteland. So let's use Mojave NPCs, which will add various NPCs to populate the Mojave without going overboard, but most importantly, it'll add dead bodies in places that would make sense. For instance, we know that other mercenaries have been sent to Vault 22 by Thomas Hildren before you.
You're not the first person Hildren sent out to the vault. There were a lot of mercs.
But in the vanilla game, there's no evidence of that. Mojave NPCs will fix this inconsistency by placing 3 dead mercs in the vault. Now Hildren's recklessness and ambition will be reflected in the game. Another mod that'll serve a similar purpose is New Vegas Redesigned 3. In vanilla New Vegas, you'd ask Boxcars why he's still in Nipton, because obviously you can't tell just from looking at him, and he'd say,
What the f do you think, asshole?
in VR3 will ensure that now you can clearly see why this poor man should be put out of his misery. The Legion really are evil little bastards. Another example is Sarah. You'll be able to see evidence of her run-in with Cook, making her more badass and further solidifying Cook as the sickest SOB in the Mojave. This mod makes so many more of these changes and enhances how NPCs look to reflect their personalities as well. Speaking of Cook and raiders in general, in OG Fallout, bandit factions were given more attention to detail, even allowing you to engage in dialogue with them. And from the Cut Fiend leader's dialogue, it seems Obsidian had more content planned for the Fiends. Cook and his castle will expand upon your encounter with Cook by restoring his dialogue.
That's Queenie. She's the prettiest Brahmin in the Wastelands. Aren't you, Queenie? Yes, you are. Who's a good girl?
Overhauling his appearance to make him more menacing, and redesigning his hideout. He'll even have 5 crazed Fiend bodyguards, all with voiced dialogue.
Are we fiends? Yeah! Do we listen to Motor Runner? Fuck no!
With this mod, meeting Cook for the first time, he'll live up to what you constantly hear about him throughout the game from other NPCs. Also, the previously mentioned Mojave NPCs adds a few fiends around the area. They'll be preoccupied doing fiend things that I can't show on YouTube. But here's a mod that I can show you, Mojave Raiders. This mod will place more raider ambush points along the roads of New Vegas. And most importantly, after you've discovered and explored Nipton, within a few days, raiders will claim the Ghost Town as their new territory. With all those mods, the Mojave Desert is surely to be a more believable, immersive, and lively place to wander.
Are you willing to kill people for money? Yes or no?
Despite the 3D Fallouts having some Radiant quests, they all are pretty much fetch quests. But in the classics, Radiant quests were more like a side hustle or a job for role-playing purposes. You could become a prize fighter in New Reno and a guard for the Crimson Caravan in the hub. Luckily, both tasks are available as quest mods for Fallout New Vegas. King of the Ring will have you box a series of fighters as you gradually climb your way to the top and fight the best of the best. You'll get a new quest with the location of Dempsey's gym once you hit level 14. Making your way inside, you'll see how hard everyone is working to become the best at the sport. You'll see them doing jumping jacks, push-ups, sledgehammer slams, punching bags, even crunches, and whatever this exercise is. From there, make your way to Dempsey's office and speak to him.
What the f do you want?
He's fully voiced, and I don't even have to see some guy's name on the credits to know that this character was scripted by them. He'll set you up with an opponent, then when you knock them out and win. You go get your caps from Dempsey along with words of encouragement.
Congratulations.
This mod features an announcer that smokes and speaks simultaneously, an asshole, cheating, and a bouncer to keep fiends outside the establishment. Next, Caravan Guard will add a new caravan company branch near the NCR Sharecropper Farms. You could tell right away from how the branch looks and the voice acting.
Hello, I'm Chet.
That most of the author's efforts were put into designing the quest's mechanics. Don't judge a book by its cover, however, because the mod is awesome where it counts. Anyway, if you pass the skill check in dialogue, you'll become a caravan guard. If you still got a few skill points to go, you can always clean up after the cows for minimum wage. Once you get the job, be on time Thursdays or Mondays to guard caravans. Speak to Chad and he'll wait for you outside.
Alright, let's get going.
This isn't an easy job because if one of the bra men fall, you'll get paid less caps. You'll have time to rest upon every stop. You'll also have the option to leave or accompany them to the rest of the locations, and you'll get paid for each stop. Just like in the classic Fallouts, occasionally, Chad will get stuck on something along the way. Just shoot him in the dome and he'll come back to his senses. Afterwards, he'll keep eyeballing you.
You eyeballing me?
Just because the classics feature those two jobs, it doesn't mean that we can't get more Radiant quests for New Vegas. Obsidian at E3 mentioned that you'd be able to do your job as a courier in the game, but that promised feature never saw the light of day. And with the mod, Mojave Express courier delivery work, we'll finally get to play as the mailman. It adds a new NPC called Linda.
Courier 6, huh? Oh, right. You must be the one who got stringed with all those weird deliveries.
Speak to her to inquire about the courier position and start delivering packages.
You'll have to make this delivery to the Hoover Dam.
I'm waiting for a package. Are you the courier they sent?
You'll be sent off to one out of 20 possible randomly chosen locations and you'll encounter random ambushes along the way. The package value will vary each time, so if the value is higher than the delivery pay itself, you could possibly sell the package to a vendor instead. But it's not that simple. If you lose too many packages or fail to deliver them, it'll come out of your pay and eventually you'll get fired.
Oh, what? That's unacceptable. This is coming out of your pay. Just pay the 200 caps penalty, and you can end this contract. Thank you. Your contract is now ended.
The mod will also implement multiple NCR toll booths to the roads of the Mojave.
Stop. This is a toll station. Pay the 20 cap fee before you can move on, traveler.
This will conflict with traveling NPCs and makes the roads cumbersome sometimes, so I removed all the toll booths from the mod to fix this conflict. Here's yet another quest mod that may as well be part of the original game because of how good it is, and also you most likely already have it installed for every playthrough. New Vegas Bounties adds a new NPC named Stephen Randall.
Hello, welcome to Randall and Associates.
He'll be near Prim inside this shack, but before you could inquire with him about the bounty hunting job, you gotta take the note off this dead bounty hunter near Goodsprings. Randall will give you the backstory of the target, the expected caps, and send you off to hunt all kinds of wanted men.
You'll be pursuing high-risk bounties. Many of the targets are extremely dangerous.
From NCR deserters all the way to crazed cannibals and even other bounty hunters. But this isn't a Radiant Quest mod, it's got a couple other installments in the series and it has an engaging narrative. New Vegas now has lots of replayable side missions. It's not just a story-driven RPG, but also a satisfying open-world sandbox to invest hours of gameplay into. In the classic Fallouts, weapons felt more dangerous. Every time you'd come across a new, more powerful weapon suitable for your build, you'd have a mini-orgasm. And proper protection in the way of apparel was more scarce. It made you appreciate combat or power armors when you finally get your hands on a set of either. Speaking of power armor, it used to look and feel more hefty. It made you feel like a walking tank. To replicate this in New Vegas, let's grab Titans of the New West 2. This mod will redesign power armor to bring it as close as possible to how they looked in the classics. It'll even make you taller, giving you a superiority complex as you walk by the Mojave's peasants. If you're worried about not being able to see your Pip-Boy, don't, because on your wrist there'll be a cute little window for you to see your Pip-Boy screen. Furthermore, the mod was made with maximum compatibility in mind through scripting and modding sorcery. The mod also comes with an MCM configuration menu to customize your experience. Now that you're a walking Titanic, you'll have new animations better fitted for a behemoth, such as wielding usually two-handed weapons with one arm. But say you couldn't get your hands on power armor, what would be the next best thing? Combat armor. And thankfully, with classic combat armor replacer Redux, we can bring back this beloved piece of apparel back to its former glory. The gun runners will look much more respectable now and look the same as they did in the classics. What if you can't get your hands on combat armor? Then metal armor would be your next choice, and I don't even have to tell you how ugly it looks in the vanilla game. Classic Metal Armor Replacer will remedy this by replacing the ugly vanilla design with the old school armor. Classic Metal Armor Mark II will also replace the reinforced metal armors with this glorious Mark II version. Classic Tesla Armor will add a new set of Tesla armor that can be acquired from the Brotherhood of Steel, or you can get your hands on a broken set that you have to repair yourself from Gloria. And finally, let's use Classic Leather Armor Replacer. Leather armor looks like it packs a bit more protection now. Moving on to bringing classic weapons to FNV, let's grab Classic Fallout Weapons Remastered. It'll implement over 40 classic lore-friendly weapons into fitting leveled lists within the game. But let's say you don't want that many weapons added to your game, or maybe you just like the one specific gun from the pack. There's a configuration file for you to activate or deactivate whatever you like. The mod also implements a few new ammo types for some of the new weapons. Now's a good time to mention that this mod list is completely compatible with the mods from this video. You can grab a B42 drop mag compatibility patch for the classic weapons pack, and you'll find many animation sets for the classic weapons on Nexus. I've linked to some of them in the description. Classic Fallout, how many companions you could have relied on your charisma. Kyrosant's Classic Overhaul has a plugin that'll overhaul how companions work in the game to be more like the classics. This is the only plugin we'll be installing from the mod. Now, the higher your charisma, the more companions you can have traveling alongside you. Also, followers will do and receive half damage to bring balance to this mechanic. Moving on, we'll be adding 2 companions from Fallout 2. First, Marcus Companion will make Marcus available as a follower after you finish the quests Guess Who I Saw Today and Unfriendly Persuasion. Just like any companion, he'll grant you a perk when traveling with you, FEV Diplomacy, which will give you better prices when bartering. The idea is that Marcus is a big scary super mutant, so that makes traders drop their prices from intimidation. Having Marcus as your companion isn't a far-fetched idea, but how about Goris as a companion? Who's Goris, you ask? It's an intelligent albino Deathclaw from Fallout 2, and with the mod Goris Companion, we'll bring him back to New Vegas. He can be found right outside Novac. Is this canonical or lore-friendly? Well, probably not, but nobody really knows what happens to Goris after the events of Fallout 2. It isn't that far-fetched that he'd still be alive and wandering the Mojave. In the classic Fallouts, you had 3 methods of traveling in the wasteland. Let's re-implement them into New Vegas. Venturing the wasteland was a different process in the old games. You could go anywhere you wanted from the get-go, but you had to know where the marked locations were, perhaps from a previous playthrough, and risk dangerous encounters along the way. And my preferred mod to emulate this in New Vegas is JIP Fast Travel Anywhere. This mod will add a new map you can use to fast travel across the Mojave that you can access via hotkey. And just like in the classics, there will be fun random encounters. Although there'll always be hostile encounters. The mod comes with an MCM menu where you can customize how often encounters occur and their difficulty. If, however, you'd like to avoid the possibility of encountering a Deathclaw while fast traveling, you could travel with a caravan for a small fee. Caravan travel will implement this feature from the classics into Fallout New Vegas. You'll find this caravan in about a dozen locations in the Mojave Wasteland, and that's how you'll travel from place to place for the most part. But you could also ask traveling merchants you encounter when traveling on foot for a lift, and sometimes they'll grant you a discount. But before you have the option to journey to any given location, you'll have to have discovered it beforehand. But let's be honest, your character is way too badass to traverse the wasteland using the previously mentioned method. For that reason, we must bring back the Fallout 2 Chrysalis Highwayman to travel in style. Repairable and drivable Chrysalis Highwayman will replace the sunken hulk of the wrecked Highwayman in the vanilla game with a new repairable version that you can drive along the roads of New Vegas. To repair this vehicle, you'll need to get your hands on a fuel cell controller. There are 2 of those for you to discover in the Mojave. Once you've found one, you can now repair and drive the Highwayman. It is very fast, however, and doesn't consume fuel. So let's grab this add-on mod to convert the car to use gasoline and slow it down. But where would you get the gasoline? I recommend using the mod Vehicles and Lootable Gasoline in the Mojave, which will turn all wrecked vehicles into containers, from which you will scavenge gasoline to refuel your Highwayman. Also, it'll add buyable gas cans and a repair thermic lance to Old Lady Gibson's vendor. This way, even if you've looted all the vehicles around the map, you'll still be able to buy gas. And finally, let's get the classic engine startup sound for the Highwayman. Don't you miss those beautiful sprite animations when you obliterate NPCs using ballistic and energy weapons? They made turn-based combat in the classics much more satisfying than it would be without them. With the following mods, we'll try to make New Vegas' kill effects just as fun. Let's first grab Awesome Staggering. It'll replace stagger animations with more amusing alternatives. Next, we get Ragdolls. and then flesh burnificating plasma, which will turn NPCs into skeletons when you melt off their skin with plasma weapons, and turns them into burnt toast when using fire. And finally, the frontier will enhance the gore from dismemberment by showing some bone in the dismembered area. With those mods, we'll have brought back as much of the gore from the classics as possible to Fallout New Vegas. But in case you want some cruelty on top, or maybe you just like the Mick and Ralph's Cryer kit to finally shut up,
Mick and Ralph, we've got stuff we're not even allowed to sell, people. Only at Mick and Ralph's. What are you doing?
you should grab Killable Children and VSE. Landing a critical hit in the first couple Fallouts was much more rewarding, and they had silly critical messages. With classic critical effects, this system will be restored to Fallout New Vegas. Now when you crit an NPC, they'll be afflicted with a random critical effect depending on the limb you hit. Effects range from knockdowns to insta-kills. The mod also adds a critical failure system which will allow for mishaps to happen during combat depending on the character's luck, like dropping your gun and setting yourself on fire. There will also be a new trait called Jinxed from classic Fallout. It increases the chance of mishaps happening in combat to you and NPCs. Lastly, the mod overhauls some perks to bring them closer to the classics as well. Combat ends in two ways in New Vegas. You either prevail or you perish. And in the classics, when you die,
hope you saved your game, cause you're dead.
Classic-driven Death Panel will add a similar death screen to the game.
And so the Courier's Road came to an end. In the new world of the Mojave Wasteland, fighting continued, blood was spilled, and many lived and died just as they had in the old world.
The OG Fallouts were tougher games. You had to strategize in combat, quest markers weren't a thing back then, and you had to actually put more thought into creating a good character build. Let's try to bring FNV closer to that with the following mods. Jsawyer Ultimate Edition is a gameplay overhaul mod for New Vegas created by the lead designer of the game and a former member at Black Isle Studios.
No, I don't!
This mod will make New Vegas more challenging by tweaking character progression, health, damage, loot scarcity, carry weights, and items. I noticed that combat is a lot more satisfying. Enemies are quicker to react, but aren't bullet spongy, and you could also get put down quite easily, so you're incentivized to take cover. The level cap was reduced from 50 to 35, which will make you specialize and take your perk choices seriously. Base carry weight was reduced from 150 to 50, so you can't just loot everything you see then sell it for quick caps. And in hardcore, your survival needs will increase a little faster. If you open the configuration file that comes with the mod, you'll also find the option to have attack skills level at double the rate, which is how they used to work in the original Fallout. There are some more changes, but I'll list them in the description below. Next, let's grab the weapon requirement system. In the classics, it'd be unreliable for you to wield a gun from a weapon category you aren't skilled with. This mod will make it much harder for you to effectively use weapons if you don't meet the skill and strength requirements. You'll miss more of your shots and probably blow yourself up. Speaking of skills, make sure you enable big guns in the JIP plugin configuration. In the classic Fallout, you used to be able to switch between firing modes as well, and that would affect your accuracy. JIP Select Fire will add that feature to Fallout New Vegas. In the classics, ammo was sold in packs. You couldn't just buy a single round. Ammo boxes will have the New Vegas merchants only sell ammo boxes. And if you were to sell individual rounds, they wouldn't be of any value for balancing purposes. Yet another feature that I missed from the classics is skill boosting items. There were several of these objects and they would increase a certain skill when you had them in your inventory. Skill bonus miscellaneous items will bring back this neat little feature and inject the skill boosting items into the vendor's leveled list. Here's an example of how they work. The compass increases your survival skill, and the paramedic bag increases your medicine skill by 5, but the field surgeon kit will increase your medicine by 10. But what if you had both medicine boosting items? Would your medicine skill be increased by 15 points? No, because these items don't have stacking effects. And that's the mod list. You might be thinking why there isn't a classic sound effects and music section, and that is because I personally don't use those mods. I like New Vegas' HUD just as it is, and same goes for the sound design. But in the description, I've left all the classic sound and HUD mods that I could find. Moving on, you have to understand that this is a big mod list and it's gonna require a lot of compatibility patches so all these mods can play nice with each other. I highly recommend you check out the Viva New Vegas guide, as I've used it as a base for this mod list. But even after following the steps of the guide, you're gonna have to look at the requirements for each and every mod I've listed in this video, and always be vigilant by reading the description and posts and bugs section. Now, if you're interested in more Fallout mods content, I highly recommend you check out the first episode of a new series on this channel, Modders Got Talent.